20. However, this game was not, in all reality, as close as the final score may indicate, and that kind of separated it from the other games as, well, I mean, most of the other games, at least we should say, depending on how you view the Carolina-Seattle game. But it's similar to that, actually, very, very similar to that game. But the Patriots, the main thing that we said here going into the game was the health of the Patriots. If the guys like Edelman primarily are back, Amendola, is Gronk, good to go and actually contribute? Well, where is the health of this team at? They got pretty much all those pieces back, playing at a fairly high level this past week, and that allowed them to fairly easily beat the red-hot Chiefs. Hats off to the Chiefs, by the way, on their amazing season. It was 11 wins in a row, I want to say, they strung out before they finally got defeated by the mighty Patriots, who look to be, many people, I should say, have as the AFC favorite to go to the Super Bowl. But other than the Patriots getting healthy, being back, and the Chiefs just, losing and a little bit of clock management issues at the end of the game and whatnot that were questionable, not really a whole lot interesting to talk about here. I mean, Patriots win a home second-round playoff game that they're supposed to win. Big shocker, whoop-de-doo. So we move on then to the night game on Saturday, which had the Cardinals hosting the Packers, and I got to watch this game. I watched it in Wisconsin, surrounded by people wearing green and yellow Packers attire. Oh my gosh, how could you do that, Scotty Ball? Well, let me, before you start, before Purple and Gold Vikings Nation is outside my doorsteps here with pitchforks and torches, let me clarify, okay? There is only one way that I would ever be in Wisconsin at a bar watching a Green Bay Packers game that doesn't have the Vikings in it, and that is if they paid me to be there. And that is exactly what they were doing. I was paid to be there watching the game. For totally separate, non-sports related work, mind you. But so I did get to watch pretty much the whole game, and it was just one of those where the whole time I called it. I called the Cardinals getting a field goal after their really questionable clock management, in my opinion, with 2.5 minutes remaining in the game and the lead. Second down, they elected... and the Packers had no timeout. Second down, they elected to pass the ball, and it was incomplete, giving the Packers a free timeout, where if they would have just ran the ball, it would have been 2-minute warning, and then you run one more play, and then you kick your field goal, and I mean, it just basic clock management stuff. So Packers had way more time. They went down, tied the game up with a touchdown, sent it into overtime. Then there was the coin non-flip, heard and seen round the world. I couldn't believe it. The second it happened, I immediately commented, it didn't flip. Well, as I blurted it out right when it happened. And sure enough, the idiot referee who did the coin flip for the overtime in that game, tied at 20, he just flat-handed tosses it up, the coin up into the air, and it doesn't rotate once. It just falls back to the ground. And Aaron Rodgers, who called it, was like, it didn't flip. What the heck was that? You got to flip it again. And the Cardinals had won it, and so they were, like, well, BS, but he did, in fact, flip it again. There is, I don't believe, they looked into it, and there isn't an actual clear rule on whether or not the coin needs to actually flip. If there isn't, that sure as heck should be a rule. Are you kidding me? Like, otherwise, any ref could just put it in his hand and try and throw it flat and sway which way the outcome goes. But so he flipped it again, and the Cardinals won again, and they stormed off, and it was weird. It looked like they had lost, and that's why they were upset. But no, they had won, and they received, and wasn't a couple plays. The whole entire drive took 1.5 minutes, and they scored a touchdown and won the game outright without the Packers even getting a chance to possess the ball. Some people still don't like that. I think those people need to just, go loosen their skirt and maybe keep their mouths closed. I mean, defense, you had a chance to win the game. Okay? It required your defense making a stop at some point in time. You can hold them to a field. You can let them go 99 yards and give up a field goal. You just can't give up a touchdown. How many possessions did you have in this game where your defense was able to hold them to a field goal or less? Oh, like 80, 90%? So what's the problem? Yeah, I guess you don't have anything to complain about, do you, when it comes to that rule? So, the overtime rule is perfect, actually, as is, in my opinion. Larry Fitzgerald came up huge throughout that entire game, especially in overtime. My personal favorite moment of the game was Eddie Lacy on a quote-unquote breakaway, where he was trying to run down the field, and it was like the funniest thing ever. Like, I don't understand how nobody caught him for like 30, 40 yards. The guy's, I could outrun that guy, and I can't outrun, hardly anybody. I'm slow as molasses, but I could keep up with Eddie Lacy. But that was my favorite part of the game, other than the Packers losing. And seeing that it was fantastic. As a Vikings fan, I was on cloud nine. Like, it made the playoffs great for me. I was in Wisconsin surrounded by Packers fans who had just witnessed their hero Aaron Rodgers pull a miracle out of his butt again and get them into overtime with a touchdown pass in the playoffs, and they were going to come back and win this thing, and man, you got to be kidding me. And then just boom, like, just rug pulled right out under their feet, just hearts ripped out. They didn't even know what happened. They're just looking at each other like, what just happened? It was, oh my gosh, it was fantastic. Probably the best part of my entire NFL season this far as a Vikings fan, and I attended a Vikings game that we kicked butt at. We won 11 wins and the division title, so it was a really enjoyable, good watch season for a Vikings fan. But that was probably the highlight of my NFL season thus far, was being surrounded by all those crushed Packers fans. Yeah, all right. See, Purple and Gold Nation, you know me. Come on, you got to hear the story. Don't just go, Scotty Ball was watching the Packers game in Wisconsin with Packers fans. Like, yeah, that's just the setting. That's not the story. That's the setting. You got to hear the story. All right, but so Cardinals victorious in overtime, 26-20. Then we move on to Sunday, where the Panthers hosted the Seahawks in the first game of the day. Panthers came out to a 31-0 lead. Holy freaking cheese balls. That's insane. Panthers is crushing it. And then, lo and behold, second half, Russell Wilson, recovery water magic, and, Seahawks just start praying harder, and they score 24 unanswered points. They're within a possession, 7 points, and that's where it stopped. The Panthers were then successful in preventing them from tying the game at the very end with just under a couple minutes to go, and hold on, 31-24. I want to say I heard that the Player of the Year and MVP awards were announced. It might just be some specific places and not the official ones. I hope that is the case, because what I heard was that Cam Newton got both MVP and Offensive Player of the Year award. I hope that isn't the case, because I personally don't think he deserves either of those awards, but certainly, without question, not both. He did not have that amazing of an individual season. We've got to stop this idiocy of just being so dumb and simple-minded that all we can comprehend is, well, his team was the best team. Like, his team was unquestionably the best team. And he's, without a doubt, the best offensive player on his team. So that means he has to be the MVP and the Offensive Player of the Year. Oh my gosh, seriously, what is the minimum IQ for being a voter on this stuff? I mean, is there one? Because I think there should be, if there isn't. Cam Newton excelled in 2 statistical categories, only one of which was an individual category. He excelled in touchdowns. He threw 35 touchdown passes, and he ran for 10. So he accounted for 45 touchdowns total on the year. That is exceptional. I could see where an Offensive Player of the Year award could be warranted for such numbers. Combine that with the fact that his team only lost 1 game in the entire season. I could see that. But that and most valuable? Like, dude's team was 15-1 because their defense was the best defense in all football all around. Like, points and passing and rushing and turnovers, all around defense. They were the best defense in all of football this year. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, that the Denver Broncos were the worst. They're the best defense in football simply because they allowed the smallest amount of total yards. That does not make you the best overall defense in football. There are other factors involved. Much like there should be other factors involved in who is the MVP of the league other than just, well, who's the best player on the best team. Freaking morons. But Cam really, really struggled for completion percentage. His yards, passing total yards are fairly low. His quarterback rating is, like 10th, 15th, somewhere in there. It just, how does a guy who, in an offense for that matter, how does an offense that's not, that's got the most, this is an offense that scored the most points in all of football, yet for their yardage total offensively, combined passing and rushing, they're middle of the pack. They're like 20th, something like that. How does that work? Oh, you've got a phenomenal defense that's getting you turnovers and giving you time of possession and keeping their defense on the field and giving you good field position when you start with the ball, where you only have to move it 25 yards to get a touchdown instead of 80. Yeah, okay, that all makes sense. It all adds up. Yes, so Cam Newton, like I said, if you want to go, well, touchdowns are the most important offensive statistic, and he had 45 touchdowns, double-digit rushing, 10, which is fantastic. Rushing, period. And then 35 throwing, which is very, very good in today's NFL. They're worthy of top 5 almost any given year. Didn't lead the league, but top 5. Okay, sure, I guess I can get that, But to go, no, this one guy who only contributed one statistic that was good. All the other ones were mediocre to bad. His completion percentage, he's one of the 5 worst starting quarterbacks in the entire NFL. That's your Offensive Player of the Year. That's your MVP. No, I like to have a much more well-rounded, all-around, premise of criteria for how I think and what I feel about things like that. And it just, Cam Newton should have been an honorable mention on all that stuff, and maybe should have gotten one of the 2. I would feel better with the Offensive Player of the Year over the MVP. I think Tom Brady and Carson Palmer both were just as, if not more, impactful on their team's success this year as well, and they had way, way better quarterbacking numbers. I mean, it's not even remotely close. If you look at all of them, well, if you just look at 1 or 2, you can go, yeah, Cam was just as good as those guys. Like, yeah, they were as good as Cam too, but still, Cam was 15-1. It's like, yeah, but you just only looked at 1 or 2 numbers. There's like 10, 15 sets of numbers to look at that give us a complete picture, But anyway, as much as you can tell, and by now that I can't stand and don't like Cam Newton one bit whatsoever. He's having a great year, and his team is continuing to play on. And I guess when it comes to the individual awards that were, I believe, given out, but I'll confirm that before I go any further. We'll discuss that next week, where we actually read